Okay, so let me welcome all of you on behalf of CTA. My name is Ritu Gaur, and I'm going to host this session as on behalf of CTA and welcome our guest speaker today, Cleopas. So Cleopas is an accomplished business executive coach, and he's a fellow of the Institute of Coaching USA. He's a member of International Coaches Federation USA and a board member with Africa Executive Coaching Council. He's also a founding chairman of Zimbabwe Health Interventions, and he's the vice president, finance, audit, and ICT for Institute People Management of Zimbabwe. And he's a commissioner under the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee. He's also a coach under Breakfast Club Africa, and he has served in central banking, manufacturing, consulting, and telecom industry at strategic levels, and founded Dimensions Management Consultants. He coaches C-suite leaders for strategic execution, and he's a member of Global Coaching. So let's welcome our guest speaker today, and today he's going to, in today's webinar, Cleopas will focus on unveiling the power of coaching in driving the strategic execution with the mainstay of successful organizations. He's also going to showcase the challenges of institutionalization of coaching and how organizations can embrace coaching for success, and ultimately how the ROI, which is like return on investment of coaching, can be showcased in achieving the desired results. So let's welcome Cleopas, and Cleopas, over to you.
Thank you very much for that generous introduction.
Thank you.
And welcome to all the colleagues that have joined this webinar. And special thanks to the Coach Transformation Academy. I believe coaching is on the rise globally, and the statistics are showing that. So we want to just take this moment to go through a talk around how we institutionalize coaching within an enterprise. So I will share my experiences around that and use one case study, but also in the process, I will try to talk around other organizations that I've been working with just to share some of the highlights of what I've found out. Allow me to just share my screen as we begin, and I will just run through some slides as we go through this process. So I've been introduced. I'm a business executive coach that is based in Zim, and I believe organizations can achieve their strategic mandate through structured coaching. And I've worked with a few organizations, and I've seen that there's great value in embracing the power of coaching. So this evening where I am, I know times are different depending on where we are. But the issue is we need to be able to tell the coaching story. And over the past few years, I have been more like selling some of the stories that I have found. And I'm challenged by this statement that says, until the lion learns to ride, every story will glorify the hunter. So at the end of the day, I know as coaches at times we don't take time to showcase some of the key value adding engagements that we would be having with our clients to also stimulate the demand for coaching in various platforms that we operate. So in that image there, I was with two mentors in coaching who are based in the UK. That's Simon McCann. He's written a book called Coaching on the Axis, a very powerful book talking around systemic coaching, together with Dr. Magaya, who is a faculty member at the Middlesex University in London. And we had just finished a talk around the issue of the area of leadership coaching, particularly focusing on systemic coaching. So I'm also challenged by this statement that says an outstanding hunter does not kill with their prey with the sound of a gun, but with a bullet. So as we begin this journey, as we begin this talk, it is my challenge to all of us to say, are we outstanding hunters? How are we doing it? And we need to be reflecting around what we need to do. Another statement that challenges me, which I'm also bringing as a challenge as we begin to talk around this talk, is that our lives are identical suitcases, all the same size, but some pack more into theirs than others. So essentially, you'll find that we need to bring out the value of coaching, but I know as we do that, our success stories will be different and the magnitude will be slightly different depending on how we drive the value of what we want to do. Before I move forward, I wanted just to high level talk around this model, which is around trust building before I even go further, because it's a critical area that we are realizing today as as leaders in organizations globally, particularly faced with the pandemic that we are faced with. Issues of remote work have become quite critical. And as we coach people, one of the critical areas that we need to be looking at is the area of trust building. I was privileged to connect with the Reinas, that's Dr. Michelle Reina and uh, Dennis Reina from the US, and they have developed the 3 C's of trust, where they are talking around trust of character, where they're talking around trust of competence or trust of capability, and they also talk around trust of communication. Essentially, what they drive it is to say, as we drive organizations, either as leaders or as coaches, we need to be looking at this dashboard, which talks around the trust components, to say, as you run a unit, as you run an institution, as you run an enterprise, as you run an SBU, at times their trust issues would come through. And they talk around trust of character, where people need to manage expectations, where you notice that at times people are looking at what is it that a leader is showcasing. I know these days we're talking of authentic leadership, and it's becoming a critical component, and trust of character becomes very key. How leaders delegate, and are they delegating appropriately so that they're able to establish that trust of character that will build in how they connect with their teams. They also talk around trust of capability, where they are saying, when people trust the capability that you have or you possess, they are able to develop a high level of trust that it has got greater intensity for you to be able to deliver the value that you are supposed to get. They also talk around leaders having this ability to allow people to make decisions and empowering them out of understanding that they are capable of delivering the value that is expected out of them. Trust of communication talks around how people within an institution are sharing information, how they are giving and receiving constructive feedback, how they are telling the truth, being candid. I know when I look at successful stories across the globe, you find that when you look at companies such as General Electric, you'll notice that Jack Welch brought the concept of Kenta in the workplace, which was about telling the truth. And as they were doing that, they began to see their results building up in the organization. So it's a critical issue around trust of communication. Maintaining confidentiality, admitting mistakes, and speaking with good purpose are all components that are building in the trust equation. And it's critical that as we begin this talk, we begin to think around these trust issues. And actually, when you look at this model, it has got assessments that move along with it. You can actually do assessment for a leader as what we call a leadership trust scale, or you can do a team trust scale, or you can do an organizational trust scale, which is a robust way of measuring trust in organizations, either as a coach or as a leader, that would assist you to be able to build this understanding of the gap that exists from a trust level. So I thought I would just begin with this, because as you talk strategy execution, you would notice that we can only execute as we connect with the people, or as leaders that we're working with, as they connect with people, they need to be understanding the dynamics of trust and beginning to embrace them and beginning to apply the key issues around trust building. So to me, those are quite critical issues. I want to quickly talk around the power of coaching in organizations, and I will flow and talk around how do you then trigger the institutionalization of coaching with a case study that I've prepared of an organization that I implemented coaching with, together with the leadership team of that organization. So I would borrow from the visionary of that organization, Dr. Strive Masiwa, who is a global leader of note. He says a vision on its own is not enough. Hard work and dedication is required to make that vision a reality. So I want to share their story as far as we talk around institutionalization of coaching. They are a global telecoms company that predominantly has its roots within Africa, and they are now expanding their influence into other spheres of the world. And the vision that they was driving them or drives them is to talk around telecommunication service to the people of Zimbabwe. And they were having a mission to, which was talking around to serve Zimbabwe by pioneering, developing, and sustaining reliable, efficient, and quality telecommunications of uncompromising world-class standards and ethics. And their values we're talking around the 3 Ps, which are on that slide, where they were talking around being personal, being pioneering, and being professional. So as we began the coaching journey, we began to say these are the values that are there. How does coaching come in to connect with this pioneering value? So you find that coaching by nature liberates people. It allows individuals to bring on their own solutions, with the coach being more like a miner or the person that is going to bring value or facilitate the value that is coming from the individual, but the individual is bringing their own solutions. So the pioneering value was a critical value because it was talking around key issues to do with individuals bringing innovation in that organization. They were talking around being personal in their organization, where they were saying they want to talk to their staff members, to talk to their clients and all their stakeholder community in a way that is more personalized. And I began to reflect around the coaching that has to come through, how coaching would come and support that journey to become personal. And I saw that it was possible. And they had a professionalism value. And at the end of the day, we were driving towards the journey of talking of driving the culture at the end of the day. And I was drawn to reflect around what the legendary of strategy Peter Drucker said, to say culture is strategy for breakfast. And as we were beginning this journey, I remember I began to challenge the leaders to say, not only does culture eat strategy for breakfast, but it can actually continue to eat it for lunch and dinner, and, unless we attend to critical issues around culture. And we began to move on a journey that was assisting us. We were guided by this critical equation, which I believe is very key for organizations, for leaders. You find that the equation is talking around performance, and it's also talking around the drivers of performance. It says performance is equal to potential minus interference. So performance can only happen when the potential is explored and the interference is minimized or mitigated against in any system. So in that regard, the interference, someone can be asking me to say, what interference is there? And I would say there are many interfering forces that we could look at. At times it's individualized, where individuals can become their own interference, where issues to do with some self-limiting beliefs can come in, where issues to do with uh, the way individuals' awareness is approached in an organization, because you find that when awareness is not there, at times it limits the way people deliver results. So at the end of the day, I began to work and collaborate with leaders with an understanding of saying we want to deliver strategy execution, but strategy execution comes out of performance, and performance is also a function of potential less the interference. The interference could also come from the cultural components within the organizations to say what is it that is within the organization that can affect them to deliver the value that they want to achieve. So we began to move with that, and driven by this statement by Professor John Whitmore, which says coaching focuses on future possibilities, not past mistakes. And I know within that context, most people were more like trying to fight against this statement, but we were saying, not are we expecting to look at mistakes of the past as a focus, but we need to look at it as a baseline to say, where are we moving from? And how does our coaching come in to drive the necessary value for organizations? Essentially, that became the critical thing that was driving the argument. And I remember we began to get buy-in from the leaders. We were driven by this definition by Zenga and Zinet, which talks around coaching being interaction that help individuals being coached to expand awareness, discover superior solutions, and to make and implement better decisions. And as we were doing that, we saw that leaders began to understand that coaching is indeed a new way of looking at developing leaders within their own context. So we also borrowed from the ICF and looked at partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that assisted them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And in that regard, we began to look at what could be our hurdles, what were the issues that were affecting the organization, that were affecting them to be able to move from their desire, from where they were to their desired position. And some of the attitudes that we discovered were around people saying we know it all. And in that regard, they were saying some of them were not ready to receive this new way of looking at their leadership approach, because when you look at coaching, it's becoming a leadership style where there is an emergence of coaching leaders globally that are emerging as we speak today. And we are seeing that revolution coming on board, and most organizations embracing it, and it's beginning to also build the capabilities that are critical for organizations. Secondly, we saw that we were a technology company and some of the leaders were leading with command. And we were saying, how do we move towards leading with soft power? Where we saw that because they were leading with command, the leading with soft power was quite low. So we said, how do we get them to go towards that? And coaching became more like the automatic solution to it. We also saw that as the organization was expanding, some leaders were not rising up to the occasion, where they were coming on board to understand that they were supposed to be shifting from the dance floor to the balcony, where they were supposed to be moving from looking at the individual trees to beginning to see the entire forest. So you find that as leaders are rising in organizations, this expectation of them becoming people that are focused on looking at the broader forest or looking at having a strategic view was lacking. And we began to say, how do we move from there? And we saw coaching becoming more like the automatic way of moving towards that. Then we also looked at managers who were having the telling syndrome, and coaching was coming in to say, as Peter Drucker predicted, to say, we were going to have the emergence of a knowledge worker who is going to be having knowledge, and also the worker would be needing to be empowered. And then we also saw that some managers were saying, why waste time asking? And we began to equip them. And some were saying time is not on our side. And we thought we needed to push this from movement from being a boss to a thinking partner through coaching. We saw it as a great way of looking at how our organization was going to transform itself and becoming a great organization. And today, I have left that organization, but I am seeing the results. I'm seeing the leaders. I continue to connect with them, and I've seen that they embrace the whole process. We developed this leadership model that was talking around leading self, leading the team, leading an operation, and also leading change and complexity, leading in a VUCA environment. And we began to assess our leaders using various tools to bring self-awareness. And we expanded awareness through those assessments as well as 360-degree feedback tools. And leaders had massive information at their hand, which was more like coming to say, like Shakespeare says in one of his books, he argues that the eye sees not itself by reflection. So in that regard, we brought leaders to this understanding that you need stakeholders to give you great feedback that would assist you to leverage your own journey as a leader. You need to look at your own areas of strengths, your own areas of limitation, and know them, and you go into a self-regulation process. And then we said leaders should begin to understand their teams better through assessment and deploy them well so that they're able to deliver in their strategy. And then we looked at mastering telecoms operations. We were saying we are training people in telecoms, but at the same time, coaching was coming in to say, how can people begin to wire themselves so that they're able to master the landscape, the changing landscape. And then the change environment was there. And we used the assessment of a leadership development center. People began to look at the reflective space. And then I provided the supervision of coaches within the same process, where we were just working with coaches, capacitating them, we trained them, we then also supervised them as they were doing their coaching engagements. And we saw that out of that process, we were embracing the Center for Creative Leadership model of assess, challenge, support. And to me, it's key that as you embrace various models, you begin to ask yourself to say, what is the best model for us? And how can I get this model to sell to our stakeholders? And you begin to move in that process. And then we use the line manager as coach strategy to begin to wire the organization for success. And a lot of line managers were taken through the paces. And we were also looking into this leadership development model, which talks about 70-20-10, where you say 70% of the learning has to happen on the job as people look at reflection, as they express themselves, as they apply their skills. We also then provided coaching and mentorship as the 20% pillar. And then the Econet Learning Academy that we had developed, which was a one-stop shop of training options. It was coming through and supporting the process. So we were utilizing it as we institutionalized coaching. So as you are building the fabric for coaching in an organization, it's about building capacity. It's also about allowing the individuals to experience the right ways of doing coaching and ensuring that it works well. So I use the basic model that I know some people are like, and some would say it's a basic model, which is the GROW model. And we worked around it and we equipped all the leaders just to understand the basics of the GROW model. We took them through this and they embraced it. They began to work with it. And it was talking around the goals that the leader has. It was also talking around the reality. Where are we so far? How do we need to move as we continue to move on? And coaching was also being utilized seriously as we went to the options, and they were exploring through a coaching engagement, what are the options that are available for the leader to be able to deliver value within their own area within their own department, their own division, their own section, and they began to look at that and mine from the leaders and build the critical areas of capacity through reflection and through implementation of the issues that were coming through. And the will was the last component, where they were more like reflecting around their commitment to the journey and moving on. And there was a lot of excitement coming onto the leaders. And they began to move a journey that was a successful journey in terms of driving their coaching process. And you notice that quite often I have seen that a lot of people have issues around the issue of measurement of value. And in this process, being a master certified return on investment professional, I began to mine from the ROI methodology developed by Dr. Jack Phillips and Dr. Patty Phillips from the US. And one thing that compels me is to say, traditionally, we have been hearing that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. But as we have been moving, as we have been looking at issues that have been coming through, I saw that there are many people that would talk around the issue of saying, now we can measure beauty. Today we have global contests on beauty, we have local contests, regional contests, and so forth. And people are measuring beauty. If beauty can be measured, I believe that we can also measure the value of coaching. And research that has been done is showing that coaching delivers great value in institutions. And I used the model that Dr. Jack Phillips and Patty Phillips have developed around what they call the chain of impact, which talks around the reaction, where you are looking at what was the reaction of people as they went through the training, and also as they went through the coaching. And then from there, looking at the learning knowledge and confidence, which is the learning level, where we're looking at the prior to the program and also the after the program knowledge acquisition process, and how people were then applying, which is application level number 3 in terms of the Phillips model. And then we looked at the impact, what results were coming out of the process that we're driving coaching. And at the end of the day, there was also a need to isolate the effects of the program to say, is really coaching the major driver of what was happening? And then at the end of the day, looking at return on investment as at the last or ultimate level of evaluation. So in terms of that, I would just possibly share some quick highlights in terms of some of the issues that we looked at. You find that the return on investment methodology looks at development of objectives of coaching. Then it looks at the baseline data. It looks at collecting data during solution implementation, which is your reaction and learning data, as well as collection of data after a solution implementation, which is your application and impact data within the coaching process. And then after you have done that, you will also look at isolating the effects, where you could use experimental groups, or you could also use your forecasting methods. You could also use other methods like your, you could look at your trend analysis, where you're looking at the trends of the business to say, where were we and where are we now? As you look at the strategy matrix of the organization, you can convert data into monetary language or monetary values, and then capture cost of the solution and calculate your return on investment. You also present the intangible measures, which is where you're looking at the value that coaching has brought, but they may not, you may deliberately not want to manage that or to look at that value in monetary language. And at the end of the day, you can be looking at that increased engagement. You can look at increased or cohesiveness of the teams, and then you generate an impact study. So what we did is we were able to analyze the results that were coming out of the workshops and the coaching process that we were going through, and we discovered that we had those scores. We had the standard of 80% average scoring, and we were able to deliver more than the minimum standard, but with issues that were coming out of this engagement, and we saw that the reaction level was quite excellent in terms of how the people reacted, or the leaders reacted to the coaching journey that we were going through. And that was the starting point, and we said this is quite critical for us. Secondly, we went into the knowledge and confidence level, where we had instruments that we used prior to the coaching engagement, and also after so we did the pre and post knowledge assessment. And I tell you that prior to the engagement, we found that the knowledge was quite low, with 39.5%. And then at the end of the engagement, we had 100% scores coming into the process. And we saw that the knowledge was acquired, and people had that understanding. And the process was also very pragmatic, in the sense that we employed role plays. We were able to get the leaders to practice coaching, and we were giving them feedback. They were redoing it. We were giving them feedback, and that built their confidence. When they went back, they were able to do peer coaching among themselves, and they went on to do with their own teams, and the results were quite encouraging, and we saw that there was value at the end of the day. So that's the process that we were going through, which was the second level there. We also integrated this and looked into how they were doing, and also when we were looking at the impact as well. We utilized the performance management results that were there, and we had recently implemented the 9-box grid of talent management, which we also integrated into the process, where we were able to look at the movement of our 9-box grid, and also our performance bell curve, where we're looking at how many people are the C players, how many are the B players, how many are the A players, as we looked into the movement prior to the coaching, and as we were getting into the coaching and tying coaching with performance, because performance generally drives your strategy. So at the end of the day, there has to be marriage between performance management, which we're using the balance scorecard system, as well as other systems. And we began to see greater shifts in terms of performance, and also the talent matrix. The results were encouraging. We saw the people moving from one box to the other box and to the other box. And it was now deliberate, because now the people were getting encouraged. They were getting also involved in the process. They saw that the journey was not a journey of finding out anyone. It was not a which hand, but it was a journey of success together, moving and looking at a brighter future for everyone. And this was also going to feed into our succession management at the end of the day. So we saw people getting to buy into the process, and they began to see results coming through. We also went into the results. I just took some highlights there of the results that were coming through from financial perspective, because I know a lot of leaders would want to look at how the financials and the key indicators of the business were looking like, as people looked at the process of coaching, as it was unveiling and continually driving their culture going forward. And you'll find that when you look at the subscriber base there, you see that there was an increase. As people were now getting into coaching sessions, they were being liberated. They began to look at their own strategies And we saw the subscriber acquisition moving higher from 1 year into the next year. We looked at the revenue levels also moving from one level to the next level. And then we moved and looked at the key indicators financially, like your EBITDA, and we saw that the financials were also responding as the coaching process was coming in, and we're looking at other drivers that were coming through, and we saw that coaching was the greatest driver, was the major driver into the results. And then we looked at capital expenditure coming in and the organization growing, because as you look into capital expenditure, you are looking into, because telecoms is essentially about expanding your network, is about expanding the capital expenditure that also brings greater value coming through. And the earnings per share began to rise as well as we were going through the process. So we looked into this, and also because I had done this for the entire group, the other related group was also, we also looked into it and saw that there were great results that were coming out of what they were doing in their business, coming out of coaching. And coaching became second nature to their styles as they were driving the business. And we also began to harvest some of the key projects that were coming out of the coaching sessions. And we saw that there was great value that was being added to the business. And people began to understand the way businesses ought to run in the current environment because of how coaching was coming into their tables, beginning to drive whatever they're doing. And we saw them getting excited about coaching, getting to utilize it. While I've left the organization now more than 5 years, leaders continue to talk to me around coaching. As far as last month, I had some of their leaders talking to me. And in that regard, I saw that while I saw a seed, I thought it was not enough, but I saw that while it was not enough, it had gathered a lot of momentum and traction within the entire system to build the right velocity for the organization to be able to see the value that was coming out of coaching. And I realized that coaching is indeed what we've been waiting for. Organizations have been doing things. Training has come on board, it's very useful. I love it, and leadership development. But find that research has been showing that when you couple training with coaching, the results are phenomenal. And this has been showing me that we really need to embrace coaching for greater significance, that we may begin to see the value that we ought to see in coaching. Research that has been shown by people like Dr. Jack Phillips shows that around 700% return on investment is established when coaching is properly deployed within organizations. And today, as I work with clients, I know recently there's a client that has been talking to me, a group of organizations, of companies, and they were saying, we want to change our leadership approach. So right now, as I'm talking to you, we have begun to deploy a 360-degree leadership assessment for their leaders. And we are beginning to establish that feedback so that we're able to sit with leaders, give them that feedback, and begin to walk a coaching journey with clarity in terms of awareness of where a leader is standing. And also we are able to see where they're ending as we do our post-assessment. And we begin to measure the critical competencies. And to me, that's exciting. I remember I worked with another financial services group again, and they were looking at their leaders and they said, let's send our top leaders into the coaching program. Let them become not necessarily certified coaches, but coaches, people, leaders that are able to utilize a coaching approach in their own engagement. And that has been very useful to them. As we speak, we hear great feedback coming out of whatever they're doing. And to me, that's exciting and that's encouraging from a coaching perspective to say, you see organizations being liberated, you see individuals being liberated, you also see strategies being accomplished, because the essence of organizations is to realize their strategies. And as they realize their strategies, sustainability is built. And we see longevity coming into the equation. And to me, that's quite critical. And don't ignore, as you look as a coach, around issues to do with intangibles, where you're looking at your issues to do with what is happening around their engagement levels, what is happening around how they are breaking the silos that has been existing in their organization. As they either do peer coaching within their own context, they begin to understand each other's areas. And I have seen a lot of individuals appreciating how they have begun to realize the beauty of other people's areas based on the cross-cutting areas as they do peer coaching. And even as they do leader to subordinate coaching, they have increased their engagement levels, in the sense that the leader is coming in a non-threatening role, where they're coming in as a coach and beginning to attend to issues before they begin to affect them in a negative way. And I have seen leaders appreciating this as it connects with their subordinates. There are moments where leaders do not find time to sit with their subordinates, but through a coaching approach, they have found time to sit with each other and also understand their teams, as the teams are beginning to build themselves, and also bring out their own, what they're capable of doing from a solutions perspective. So it's critical that coaching, whether team coaching, one-on-one coaching, comes in to just unravel some of the cultural issues. And I'll tell you that we can drive great cultures in this environment. I remember I was listening to the Netflix story, and I remember their CEO has written a book called No Rules, Netflix, with another professor just recently. And when I was looking at that, I was saying, I believe these guys are breaking they're more like dealing with creating a culture of flexibility and building a fluid institution that would be able to deliver value to the global market that they are dealing with, because they are breaking rules, but not breaking them in the negative sense, but making sure that unnecessary protocols and issues that affect their organization are being broken because of the new culture that they are building up. And coaching can facilitate that in a great way. And it's critical that as coaches, we begin to more like accelerate the coaching movement within the global space, and get institutions to embrace, and we work with them, and we continue to talk the value story through the chain of impact and the return on investment model that we are utilizing. So I am looking at this story that I've shared, and I saw that the organization has grown in terms of digital transformation. And today you find that technology is what we are wanting. I know one authority says that the workplace of the future is going to have two men only. And a man, they say those two men, it's a man and a dog. And they say the role of the man is to feed the dog, and the role of the dog is to prevent the man from touching the equipment, which means that we are moving into digital transformation that is of greater economic value, and also of immense value in nations. And it's critical that coaching comes to support that. And essentially, that's what happened with this story that I've shared. And today the group has developed, if you Google them, you will see great results and great issues that are coming onto their tables are going forward. So I think I will just pause here and hand over to our moderator. Possibly there could be questions, there could be comments coming through, and I will hand over to our moderator to just continue with this talk and this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cleopas. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I personally loved your model of input application and then segregate the result of coaching. I just loved that. Thank you, thank you for such a wonderful and informative presentation.
Thank you, Rich.
It's a opportunity for audience to ask any questions if you have to Cleopas, because we still have about another 10 minutes to go. Or if you have any comments, any thoughts, please feel free to share. We have Cleopas with us for another 10 minutes. If there's anyone who is actually working in the corporate space, and if you are either getting into coaching or you are a leader and you have like teams and everything and you work with people, please feel free to ask any questions or any challenges which you face in your workspace, and I'm sure Cleopas will be able to throw some light on it for you and to give you a different perspective. I have one comment definitely here, Cleopas, from Sophia, and she's saying that many profound insights and informations. Thank you for that. So, thank you, Sophia. And we're happy that you enjoyed and you liked the session and the information shared by Cleopas. Anyone else would like to ask anything? And just to let you know, this entire session, this entire presentation will be available on our social media handles. And my colleague Sohum is going to share, I think he has already shared the link of CTA social media handles. So please feel free to revisit this presentation in case you've missed anything or in case you want some more clarity on certain aspect of the presentation shared by Cleopas. I have a question here, Cleopas. So the first question is from Nayan Kumar, and his question is that what kind of challenges you faced to convince the top leaders of any organization? I hope he is asking that that how did you convince them that coaching is the option for them? Am I right, Nayan Kumar? If it's something else, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak. So yeah, I think that's a question.
Thank you very much. So what I would say is the challenges that I faced is to do with just getting the buy-in. So it was a lot of work. I had to prepare around, but I think my issue was to look into the organization's history. I think you can see that on that slide. It's talking around 20 years in terms of its age, but it was developing. So I then looked into what could be the key issues around the resisting forces. And I saw it around leaders saying we have been doing well, and what has changed. So we have been doing well over the past years. But the issue is, I then said, I was borrowing from Charles Henry, who says, in what we've done, we have not done because there's more. So at the end of the day, I began to challenge them to say, yes, we could have done well, but the environment that we are facing ahead of us is a tougher one. And we need to utilize the right methods for us to be able to deliver the value. So in that regard, we engaged. I then also pitched presentations to the key stakeholders within the organization, and they bought into it. And I remember doing coaching sessions or training with general managers within the organization. And as they tested coaching, they began to like it. And to me, that became the entry point. And once that buy-in came on board, I began to say, let's quickly move. And we began to do the coaching sessions and training everyone on board, including the supervisors. And we began to report on it. And like I shared some of the results, we began to report on it. And that gave the impetus for continue to do what we were supposed to do from a coaching perspective. So to me, those are some of the challenges. To say you have people that are comfortable in the current, you also had people that had their leadership approaches being challenged or their leadership paradigms being challenged. So it was just saying to we are evolving. While this has worked prior, there is a new leadership approach that we need to embrace. And yes, it took time, but as we used the training, they began to unwind and they brought the new ways of running through the whole process. And I saw another question, which is related again, which was saying, what is the easiest way to get CC to buy into develop a coaching culture? So one thing I would say is when you are getting into an organization and doing coaching, quite often I know the C-suite people would not want to get time, but try to get 30 minutes of their time. If they have an exco meeting, get through and put slides, 5 to 10 slides, sell the coaching story to them. And as you do that, get them to also buy into the concept of them getting trained, and you can reduce the training for them so that you don't make it as very detailed as the other people. And as you do that, you are making them test what it does and then go through. And what I've also done is also to take global leaders like Eric Schmidt, for example. I usually utilize a video from Eric Schmidt. I didn't run through it in this session because I wanted us to get more talk, where he was talking around him being in Google, being the CEO, and he said, I don't want coaching. Why do I need a coach? I'm an established CEO. And then he said, I begrudgingly took on coaching when someone encouraged me. And Bill Gates also talked around coaching. And I share those examples and say, if Bill Gates is receiving coaching, if Mark Zuckerberg is receiving coaching, if Steve Jobs would receive coaching, what would stop you and I from receiving coaching? And as we get to those conversations, I've seen executive teams getting to buy into coaching. And it's very critical. Today, we have Breakfast Club Africa, and people are getting to do peer learning through this. And to me, it's very critical. Thank you very much. I think I've tried to attend to the two questions in one response there, Ritu. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have another question here, that what if a leader is not able to be coached? Like if there are times, when leaders are very, very resistant, when they start getting into the coaching setup. So how to go about it?
Thank you very much. So that's a key question. You find that coaching happens with the leader, and the leader is critical in the coaching process because the solutions are going to come from them. So it's critical that you get the buy-in. One thing that I have realized is that at times people sell coaching wrongly, and it becomes a tough call on us now. I remember one of these years I was called by a financial services group, and they said to me, we have one of our MDs whom we want coached. But what have they told the MD? They had said to the MD, you are not a good leader, and we want to find you a coach. So when you sell coaching as a first thing, it becomes a challenge to run through it. So I then said to them, I sat with the guy, and we began to discuss, and I saw that he had a negative view of coaching. So what did I do? I said to them, let's pause for a moment. Don't do it now, because we can't force coaching. Coaching is a voluntary process, and because the leader is critical in the process, you can't force it on them. And you have sold it as more like a remedial action. Yes, I know coaching can come in as remedial action, but let it not be the major driver or the major message that you are selling to them. Remember, when I shared earlier on, John Whitmore says, coaching focuses on future possibilities, not past mistakes. So at the end of the day, I said to them, let's pause, let's not do it now. It's not the right time. And then after doing that, I saw that the leader began to like coaching because it was critical for them. But I took time to go through education exercises for them to appreciate it. And usually what I also do is before coaching engagements, I say, let's meet with the leader. If there's an HR executive who is also part of the process, I ask them to say, tell the leader why you are sending them for coaching. And usually I challenge them to say, try to sell a positive story to them. And I've seen that when they do that, they increase the motivation for coaching. and the environment or the ground becomes very fertile for us, and we begin to move along well with the leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Cleopas. Thank you for sharing this. It's so beautifully put it out there by you that yes, coaching at times, yes, though it is a remedial action, but if we share it as a remedial action and we sell it as a remedial action, the person who is actually involved becomes very defensive, and then he doesn't open up and the coaching doesn't happen. That's so right. Thank you for sharing some very practical points. I think some one of our audience has sent a message here. So thank you for sharing the practical points. So yeah, thank you for the session today, and thank you everyone uh, for being so patient audience, and I hope you all must have learned. Please feel free to revisit the recording of this session on our social media handles. You can always check it there anytime, any moment. And yeah, thank you everyone. Any last comments, thoughts, please welcome. Else, we'll wrap up the session. Okay, thank you. There's so many audience. Cleopas was just sending messages of thank you. Thank you to everyone. And for any further inquiries, you can always send us an email at info@coachtransformation.com, and we'll be more than happy to provide you further details. Thank you. Have a good day, and thank you, Cleopas, once again for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time that CTA has provided to me, and also the colleagues that have been able to come out and join this call. And I appreciate what CTA is doing in the coaching landscape. I think you can see a lot of value that they're adding, and I would recommend that let's do their programs, let's join their programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.